All right. Whenever guys come to me talking about that they want to improve their lives or they're about, that whole self improvement thing, I always tell them that they need to go learn how to fight. More specifically, they need to go to take up a striking art. So your boxing, your kickboxing, your MMA. I know this always pisses my grappling cats off. Your BJJ cats, your wrestlers, your judokas, and I'll get into like why I recommend that later in the vid. But look, it ain't no shade to y'all discipline. I just want to go right off the bat and say you guys are the truth. I don't have that stamina. I don't have that skill set. My skill set is throwing hands, swinging on domes, and hoping I knock cats out or break some ribs. But you guys got real skill. So I'm just letting you know that I respect what y'all do. It just ain't for this. Though, if a guy decides he wants to go do it, I mean, I'm not going to tell him he shouldn't. But in terms of what I would recommend to a cat for self improvement, I always tell guys you got to go how to learn how to fight. You got to learn how to fight in a gym with other fighters. Conducting under the Marquess of Queensberry rules, whatever the equivalent is for MMA or kickboxing. In other words, like a sanctioned bout. You ain't got to be some world class pro. Just go train for like a year, take some amateur fights. And look, I wrote my book, Hard Lessons from the Hurt Business, Boxing and the Art of Life. I talked about how boxing, completely transformed my life. And before I get to that, just look at what boxing didn't do. So you see it ain't about what you think it might be about. I didn't become some type of world class famous athlete. More people know me from my social media than boxing. Um, I didn't make a bunch of money. The most money I made was $8,500 when I got knocked out on Showtime. And my coach and my management, they took 25% of that right out of the jump. So it's not like there's a lot of money floating around. I didn't become rich out this game. Uh, and I definitely had, my linger injuries, but those heal. And you can read actually, before we get into that, like you can go like read, I got a sample chapter available for download in the pinned comment. Check that out. But but when you check out that sample chapter, it talks about my beginning life growing up in the projects and then, my first year and real focus in boxing and how it changed me. You can see one of the things that boxing really does. The first thing off the bat is that when you learn how to fight, when you learn how to do this stuff, you become competent. I feel like a lot of young guys today, when I say young, look, I'm 40. So young could really be anything like 30 and under. If you don't remember watching 9/11 happen, that's definitely young to me. But you're still an adult now. And from my understanding, man, a lot of guys today, they don't feel competent. They don't feel like they can do things. They don't, and that's because competence breeds confidence. And if you let yourself become good at fighting, well, you're going to get a really interesting type of confidence. It's not just like I'm gonna go learn to play the piano or something like that. Though that's cool. Definitely recommend you go learn to play the piano if that's what you want to do. When you learn how to fight, when you learn how to deal with another man fighting back at you, and you're tired and you're beat down and you're hurting, but you push through it, you believe that you can do a lot of other things. Like your whole worldview opens up because you persisted not just through a challenge, but one that was physically, mentally, and emotionally stressful. And you managed to survive. Not only did you survive, but if you're in any type of decent gym, um, your peers who will turn into your friends, they're going to support you and really rally around you. They're going to be there for you, man. Boxing gyms are not full of assholes. So if you had that idea in your head, it ain't like that. In fact, I ain't never been in a fight gym and had a problem with the guys there. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I'm saying in my experience and the experience of most of the guys that I know, it doesn't matter what your discipline is, BJJ, kickboxing, MMA, boxing, straight up, even karate, even though, who's doing karate these days. The point is, it's an environment that humbles a lot of dudes. So ain't nobody walking around looking like with this crazy ego, like in the outside world where people don't equate disrespect with some type of painful physical retaliation. So you're going to get that confidence and that confidence that comes with it. You're also going to get connection. You're going to get connection really in two ways. One, Um, I guess they're both kind of obvious and not obvious. I was about to say something, then I changed my mind. So, one, you're gonna make friends. You know, I made a tweet a few months or maybe a few years ago at this point where I talked about how I've never had problems making friends as an adult, and I realized that a big reason for that is that I just went out when I was 23. That's when I started boxing. That's when I took it up. And then I just kept meeting people through that. Then I enlisted in the army, and then it was like the whole chess circuit, and then a bunch of people I meet online now. But the point though is that a lot of us don't ever learn how to make friends. So we become adults and we're clueless. We have no effing clue on what to do because for most of our lives we were just put in this room, and in this room were a bunch of other people who were forced to be in this room with us, and we were all forced to learn the same things and a lot of times forced to work together. And if you throw enough shit up against the wall, some of it's going to stick. Some of us got along and some of us stuck with that. But then when you leave that environment, you get out into the real world. Maybe you go to college and you're in version 2.0 of that. But after college or when you join the workforce, it's hard for a lot of people. It's hard to meet people. It's hard to make friends because now you don't have this thing in the background, this forced crucible to make you interact. Well, if you go to a fight gym, look, it is impossible. You cannot, if you're at a gym for a year and you don't make a friend, but you're still allowed to go to that gym, I don't know how, because if by that point, like after a year, somebody's going to invite you to something. Somebody's going to swap numbers with you. Not even on no romantic shit. We'll get to that, but like you're gonna meet some people that you just vibe with and rock with, if for no other reason. Like one of the things we did back when I was just learning how to fight, like we always got together for every fight, or well, almost every fight. But like it was either a UFC card or a boxing event, a pay per view or a regular one. Didn't matter. We got together for it because that's what we were doing. We were trying to become better fighters. We were following the fight game. So right there, we were watching a fight. Compare this to what your like average adult does. It's like, oh, you'll wait till Sunday for football and we all gonna go out to the bar and drink. You might not even give a shit about football, but it's better than being alone. So you go and you might not want to drink, but it's better than drinking alone. Or better than being alone. So you're there and you're stuck. And I'm not saying there wasn't no alcohol at these things, at these cookouts, at these parties for these fights. What I'm saying is that wasn't the reason why we were there, and we ended up having other things to connect with, talk about beyond that. Look, you want to make friends as an adult, you got to go do something. Ain't no way around it. People ain't just gonna find you. Nobody cares about you. Nobody knows you exist except your family. You got to let people know you exist. You got to enter their life, and if you find a common kind of watering hole of ground, like fighting is, um, it's going to be the way that guys bond. I mean, and look, you might meet some girls there. I actually know a few guys who have met their significant other at the gym. Now, that ain't really what guys think about when they get into boxing or they get into any type of combat sport. But look, even if, I mean, I dated a lot of different girls when I was training, with the wife now. It's been 12, 13 years. Let me tell you something about fighting. This has been my experience, and I think a lot of guys have had something like this, though not exactly like this. No girl is gonna be like, no girl you want to date is gonna look at you and be like, oh, that dude's in shape and he's a fighter and people like him and he looks popular. That's not for me. If a girl has that reaction, you don't want anything to do with her anyway, okay? But you will meet some that don't necessarily care about boxing and probably won't even come to your fights. I mean, she might like out of support, but she ain't really gonna be like down for the cause. That ain't no red flag. But well, it depends what you want. It might be a red flag. But where I'm going with that is that even if she doesn't like boxing, even if she doesn't like MMA, your fighting art, the fact that you're about something, like you're not just sitting around playing video games and watching Netflix and going to the bar or drinking or vaping or whatever it is y'all doing today, and that you'll be in shape because downstream of training for a fight, you get in shape. It's impossible not to. Uh, and you'll have something interesting to talk about, even if you're the most boring dude in the world. Like it doesn't matter how boring you are when you talk about what you do as a fighter. Like it's impossible to not like because most people ain't gonna do that. But that's so far out of what the humans try to do. We try to avoid pain, most of us. And most of us, we ain't thinking about getting in the ring, but to look at you with awe and admiration. And that's going to make you friends. At the very least, that's going to put you in a position to meet some girls, be invited to some places, network. It really is going to improve that aspect of your life, which is a related to another piece that like no one talks about, but I'll talk about it. And I'm sure other people are talking about it. You know, that's just a cool thing to say. Look, we know that the thing that outperforms SSRIs when it comes to depression and anxiety is exercise. Like, that's it. Like, exercise does better than SSRIs. I'll drop a link in the description along with, the link to the sample chapters of my book, so you can check that out. But if you suffer with comes from some type of anxiety or depression, there is no better fix than this type of regular exercise. On top of that, you're getting that competency. So you're just going to feel better about how you handle the world. And anybody who's watching is going to get pissed off like I'm talking about some type of cure for depression or anxiety. Look, I'm not the boy that's going to say that ain't real. Clearly, you're suffering from something and it's real. What I will tell you is that that I've been afraid of a bunch of stuff. I learned how to work through it because you got to, because that's life. And fighting is going to teach you that. It's going to help you manage that. I used to call it turning down the noise. Like, I was in a movie, I can't remember the name of the movie, but it was a scary movie, and there was the scene that, where I'm like, oh, I got scenes, and everybody's supposed to jump in their seats, and I was just chilling there. I didn't even realize it until I thought back. I was like, wow, that didn't even like stun me. It's not that it wasn't a scary moment. Like, I could feel the terror. I love horror movies. But I was just in control of my nervous system. Um, and you get that type of control when you learn how to stay calm and relaxed and get in there and fight. And this is why, now we're going to just lean into that naturally. This is why I don't recommend for this thing the grappling arts, because look, getting choked out sucks. Getting tapped out sucks. It all sucks, right? None of it's pleasant, but it doesn't have the same intensity as a guy throwing punches at you for you to have to react in a split second, block, defend, stare down, damage is coming, and still get out the way, still slip, still defend yourself, roll with a punch. That takes a lot of courage and skill. You can develop that courage. As you develop that courage, your mental resilience, it just goes to the roof, because you realize, it ain't that big of a deal. And when you get hit and go, oh, it ain't that big of a deal, you realize, a lot of other stuff in the world ain't that big of a deal. You're going to be okay. That's why fighting is great. I remember Randy Couture told me once, he said, if the worst thing that happens to you in your life is that you lose a fight, it's a pretty good life. Now imagine you take that mentality and you look at everything else. So it like, well, I got punched in the ribs today, and I maybe got knocked out. I got a little hematoma in my eye. I think that's the word for it. Hematoma is either in the head or the eye. I'm not a medical dude, so don't shoot me. You got a little bit of that, but then you go on and you have a good day, man. You in great shape. You realize it ain't that big of a deal. Okay. And there's another thing too, man. If you let the sport, whatever your combat sport is, if you really go and take this thing seriously for the year I recommend, you take it seriously, then a few things are going to happen. You're going to stop wasting time with everything else that ain't worthwhile. You're going to pay your rent. You're going to go to the gym, go do your job and pay your rent. That's pretty much it. That means you're not going to be wasting time with any low quality activity or people, right? They might slip in here and there, but your time exposed to things that can set you back become reduced because you're focused on something else. And that's a beautiful thing, because half the game of life, or shit, way more than half, is really just not messing up. If when I was drinking heavy. Even though I was still going out to the bar, I wasn't going out to the bar nearly as much as I would have been, because I would have a fight that week when I was an amateur. In my pro career, I mostly didn't drink, actually. That's right around when I stopped drinking, when I turned pro. But for the amateur stuff, if I got a fight that week, I'm not drinking. That's a whole week of me not going out. And maybe that made a difference. Maybe in another lifetime, I don't fight and I go out that night, I get into a drunk driving crash, and I'm rotting away in jail or something like that. Who knows? You spend less money You're not making any money, but you spend less money because you're not wasting money on nonsense. You're probably also going to end up like really caring about your health. Your sleep hygiene will get better because you're gonna be exhausted from training and you don't want to, mess up your ability to compete. All of these things are going to self-improve you. Everything you want to get out of self-improvement. You want to feel competent. You want to feel confident. You want, people to like you. You want to belong. You want to feel like you can go pick up skills. You don't want the world to feel so scary. Um, Learn how to fight. Learn how to fight in a sanctioned environment. I'm not talking about going out in the street, knucking till you buck, knuck till you buck or knuck if you buck, right? That old song. Anybody who's young, look that one up. Knuck if you buck. That shit'll make you want to break the law and stomp the homies out, thinking you can fight the whole hood. But we ain't talking about that kind of fight. We're talking about a sanctioned bout and what sanctioned bouts will do to you and how to improve your life. You do that, you'll be in great shape. And if you want to see what real self-improvement also looks like in addition to fighting, watch this video right here on the screen. That will really take you through the number and give you 5 other ways to make your life better. The rest is up to you.